All right. So I'm here. We're back, and I'm doing this as a remote podcast using YardStream. So this is going to be a little test episode. It's a full episode, but it's going to be my first time doing this. So I want to talk to you guys real quick. A couple things coming up next month in October. Well, this episode will come out in October. So this month in October, October 19th, Shell Shock is a music festival that's going to be in Orlando. It's a concert charity event that aims to deliver exceptional entertainment experience while raising funds for the Cat 2 Foundation. And a portion of those proceeds are going to go directed to a reputable charity that supports first responders struggling with injuries and things that include post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the things we're going to talk about today. The event's going to have some awesome bands, mostly metal bands, and then some vendors. And I'm looking forward to being there because I'm going to be helping out. And so I hope to see you in Orlando, give you an opportunity to go to Orlando and check this out. It's October 19th. I'm going to have the links in the descriptions down below. If you want, you can check it out on Instagram as well. It's shell_shock_music. I will throw that up uh, down at the bottom at some point, just as a little advertisement for it. You can also get your tickets on Eventbrite. So I hope to see you in Orlando, October 19th. It's a Saturday. Additionally, I have created a Discord for the show. Discord's a community-based app that gives us a place to chat. I can create different like chat streams for it with about upcoming guests, previous shows, future events that are coming up, kind of like Shell Shock, stuff like that. So jump on the Donut Shop Podcast Discord. You can follow the link that's in the description also below on this on the YouTube or podcast, wherever you're checking it out. And then also go over to my Instagram, Donut Shop Pod, and you can check the story highlights. There's a little logo for Discord, and it'll have a link. All right. Well, going forward with the show, I'm going to bring on Deborah Green. So give me 1 second, and I will run the intro. So get that intro started, and I'll bring on Deborah.
Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
All right, that is still me. Technical errors, and there we go. There we go. Deborah Green. So, like I said, it's my first time running this little control board kind of section. This setup for StreamYard. So this is Deborah Green. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the Donut Shop Podcast. Deborah Green has an extensive background working as a dispatcher out in California. You're still in California right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
instead of me going through the bio and the background, welcome, and you might as well kick it off, please.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me. This is great. My name's Deborah Green. I've had about 30 years in law enforcement. I started my career as a military police officer back in about 1990. I was in the military prior to that as a communication specialist and then switched over. In 1992, I started with Sacramento Police Department and as a dispatcher. Lasted about a year with them and then got hired with El Dorado County in 1994, where I retired in 2021. Due to PTSD and also the compound complex PTSD that one acquires while 30 years of law enforcement and listening to lots of traumas.
Thank you for your service in the military, first and foremost, and then your time being a dispatcher. I know for a fact, as a currently working police officer on the road, we have our positive and negative feedback with dispatch. I'll give you a quick story to kick it off, and then I'd like to hear a little bit. I'd like to hear some of your stories. I started mine out. I got hurt in the police academy, and so they brought me out, and while I recovered before going back into the police academy, they threw me into dispatch, and we had our own for my city. And so I got to sit with them and really mostly just shadow them and just listen to what's going on. It's not like I got to do the job. So I sat in like our teletype, which is, for anybody that doesn't know, that's, they're running names and licenses and stuff and going through the person's criminal records and everything. But you didn't necessarily want to hang out near the main channel operator because they were the busiest.
Right.
And but sometimes I'd sit there and listen to the 911 takers, and it wasn't a big room. There was usually probably 4 to 5 working at a time, and then there was like one or two over on the fire side, which was in the same room. Um, but the fun thing that I learned about it was, when the pedal comes off, or when the foot comes off the pedal of the main channel dispatcher, everything that they say about you, and then they just push it right back, and then they're, I'll show you en route, like, but they're usually
Yep.
like, that comes off the pedal and it's like, this mother, and they're cursing
Oh
at
yeah.
you, and you know, but of course, so then I made friends with many of them, and so just like dispatchers can kind of hear our voices, I could hear their voices and know, who they were, and what their problems were too, if they were angry with me or whatever. So um so the military, working in communications. Cool.
Yes. I was radio. What was my official title? Was radio telephone operator and repair. And basically, I ran the switchboards for the field phones. I don't
Hmm.
know if you're familiar with those.
Not
Lots of
really.
wires.
Uh-huh.
If you remember the old operators from AT&T with the plugs
Okay.
and the
Oh,
wires,
yeah.
that's what it was. So you had a box that did that, and I could hook up at least 50 phones if I needed to. And so I
Hmm.
would hook those up, and then also do the radios that were in the vehicles.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So
And
kind of
then
a rudimentary dispatcher, I guess you'd call me.
yeah, yeah, I mean, compared to some of the technology they have now, where they're kind of almost just getting told what to do, and they're having to read full, like, scripts, basically.
Oh yeah.
It's probably a different world. And then you moved over to the police world, to Sacramento. I've been to
Right.
Sacramento. It was pretty nice.
Yes.
It was a fun time,
Yeah.
but
Pretty
can be
nice.
busy. Yeah.
It's a medium-sized city. I mean, it's not like San Francisco or LA. But uh when I was working there in 1992, it was busy. And I
Mhm.
compare it to the two departments that I worked for. The busiest night at my second department, the sheriff's department, was the slowest night for Sacramento.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was a little the reason I was let go on probation was because I wasn't fast enough, and that's okay. But they did hire me back part-time as a call taker. So I just didn't pass their program. So, and that's all right.
So
And
what
they
was
gave me
the
fabulous references.
Yeah. They liked you as an employee, it's just you weren't necessarily cutting the speed that they need. So when you say the speed that they need, what portion of it was speedy? Because I know there's when you get hired, you have to be able to type a certain amount of words a minute. Um
Right. It was just how do I decide? It was the radio portion that I
mhm.
wasn't getting, and talking and typing at the same time and getting
Ah,
things done. And um it was before Windows. So it was a complete type. You had to type everything in.
okay.
So where when you go to a window based CAD system, you have a mouse and other things that you can do that increase your speed. But
Right, because I
I'd
know
only
our
been
people.
there 11 months, so
Yeah, it's only so much training, and if you're thrown
right.
right into the sauce, like, right there, like, you may not be ready for that, because I know our people now, they've got, like, a vertical monitor, like 2 stacked horizontal monitors and it's like there's all kinds of
Yeah,
information.
so when I started, it was I don't know if you're old enough to remember green screens. and DOS
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
systems.
Yeah, DOS, yeah, MS-DOS,
So we
yeah.
had 2 green screens when I first
Oh,
started.
okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
a
So and
telephone
that's
and
the
your radios and everything wasn't computerized and, um,
right. So like,
it
yeah, like you said, it was pre-Windows, so you're not getting like pop-ups or specialized functions. It's just coming across like a ticker that just probably a call taker putting in the information, and then it's that is coming up, right, for you?
Right, so you have a place for your units and your calls and pending calls and things like that, quite different than what they have today. When I retired, they had 10 screens, so
Per person
per person,
or
yes. So
holy
10
moly.
screens surrounding us that contain the radios, the phones.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
we had one specifically for the internet because we had
Mhm.
some things that we were able to do on the internet. Um, all of our mapping functions and like you said, the teletype functions you can do, and so you had everything. Just it was um, quite overwhelming for new people, I'm sure.
Yeah, so
And
and so is that a main channel, or is that like a main channel or a radio
And no,
channel station,
everybody
or
had so we had 8 when I left, we were in a new building and we had 8 positions and each
Mhm,
position had 10 screens at it. So you could sit anywhere and kind of make that your home every time you went in
mhm.
for shift and you could do any radio or phones from that spot.
So, like,
So,
the
which was
supervisor
kind of
would say,
nice.
like the supervisor might put you on 911s or non-emergencies, and then someone else might be a main channel or a channel operator or something like that,
Right. We
depending
had
on how it
2
works? Okay.
channels. One was the main channel that was, what we called West Slope, which was, Echo Summit, which is at the Sierras, west
Mhm.
to Sacramento County line, and then, Tahoe Radio, which covered the Tahoe Basin, because we went all the way to Nevada. Um,
And so that was at the county,
that was at the county level,
your
yeah.
your longer stint, so
Yes, my longer
yeah.
stint.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then,
the
so you
real
had
job.
2 radios and then call takers, and everybody
Oh,
answered all the phones. So it wasn't
mhm.
just someone doing just 911s and someone just doing non-emergency. Everybody did everything. Even when you're working radio, if you weren't doing anything and the phones were off the hook, you were answering the phones also.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 if they were blown up, because that's what I know one of the problems we have locally is, like, our non-emergency, it seems like they only have one person that answers it, and so a lot of people will complain out in public just
Right.
saying, "Hey, I can't get anybody on non-emergency forever." So then they just hang up and dial 911, and so,
Right, which
um, you
overloads
know
that system. So
yeah. Yeah, it becomes real difficult. I mean, I want to bring up a story that was last week, but it's probably too soon
too
publicly
soon.
to talk about it, as far as investigations probably have to happen and stuff. Um, but so then, okay, so you were talking, because there's a large amount of multitasking. You've got
Right,
your inner thoughts that you've got to deal with. You've got what you're hearing on the radio. You've got what you're seeing on the screens, and you're then basically playing chess with a bunch of pawns or checkers or however you want to play it, moving them around the districts and the
right,
zones, and you've got all that, and then you've got to listen to that kind of stuff.
right.
Um, so I can see where it becomes difficult. Like, I know for a fact ours, when they're trying to give out something medium to hot, then you've got your person that's like, I'm not going to speak in codes because not everybody speaks the same codes, but so I'll just be like, they basically raise their hand on the radio and say, copy a traffic stop, and it's like, are you serious?
Oh,
Like,
oh
you know
my gosh.
and you
Yes.
know
You're
so
putting out a robbery in progress, and you've
yeah.
got, 6 units going to that, and then you've got, Barney Fife at the other end of the county going, "Hey, I wanna do traffic stop now," and it's like, "Dude, are you not listening?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like we say in briefing sometimes, like, "Hey, read the room. Check out what's
Yeah,
going on," and then
just,
and then
and even the
just
sergeants would come up and say, "Hey, is this necessary?"
uh,
Luckily, sometimes it would be, a drunk driver or something like that,
yeah,
which, yeah, but,
right.
you just
But
want to reach through that screen and strangle them.
but I bet it's good on the dispatch side to hear a supervisor pipe up and sort of correct their guys. Like I know sometimes
Right,
if we get
right.
an
If you had
attitude,
good supervisors, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
if we get an
um,
attitude once in a while, I've heard the supervisor. I mean, at least for us, they'll text us on the side, and maybe the dispatcher's not aware of that, but they'll just be like, "Hey, cut it out" or whatever. Um, that kind of thing. There's that.
yeah, there was a few times where because I was the highest seniority there, um, towards the end of my
Hmm.
career, and I had not a problem going over the air and just telling everybody to restrict their traffic.
Yeah,
Knock it off.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, and that's it was always helpful. Like I was saying, like I mentioned before, knowing who they were, especially once you had text and stuff. And then
Mhm.
we always, or when I first started, we had like a text on the computer, of course monitored
Right.
by the department, so it was recorded and it's public record. But it would always be a little silly sometimes when they'd send a message across the MDT to us to tell us, that they got a laugh or whatever. Like
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
get
yeah.
I'll get laughs still to this day because I'm a little goofy on the radio. I try to maintain professionalism, but I try to be a little goofy if it's something that's entertaining. That seems like came up, so they'll send a message and be like, "I almost spit out my water" or something,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Many
for
times.
what you just said. But it's one of my things that I felt was important. Not to get towards the later part of our discussion, but that you guys are in a submarine. I've used that explanation to people before. You're in a submarine. You don't necessarily see outside to see what, you kind of hand us the ball, and then for the most part we end up running with it, and we do a whole bunch of things, and sometimes even off the radio, and we're not given full explanations. Um and
Right.
so is that kind of what leads to sort of the tougher times for a dispatcher and not really getting
Um,
closure on
our
everything?
department wasn't as bad as other, like a larger department, not having closure on certain calls can really affect somebody. Because we were so small, and it was like the deputies would come up and talk to us after and let
Oh,
us know what was going on, which was really nice. Um, I think, um, more often than not, it was just listening to the things on the phone when you pick up the phone that was the worst.
okay.
Um, or
Right,
if
because
you're
by the
in
time we
a
see it, a lot of times it's cooled down, because one of the things that some
right,
of these people that I'm finding that as they're fighting or whatever, just the dialing of 911, they're trying to use that as a tool to get the other person that they're arguing with, or the stress that they're dealing with, to get it to stop. So they'll
right,
dial 911, and then you guys are the ones that are hearing that. Um,
yeah,
Tell me more
you
about
know,
that.
there's a lot. You pick up the phone and um, sometimes it's the little kid, the
Hmm.
the 3-year-old playing with mommy's phone, and you're
Yeah.
trying to deal with that, and then you hang that up, and then you've got a stabbing in progress
Right.
that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Yeah.
listening to, or
Yeah.
somebody that's been shot, and then you go through that call, and you don't even have time to breathe, and you're on to
Hmm.
the next one. Where
Hmm.
when you guys are out on the road, you go one call and you deal with that call, whether it's 5 minutes or 2 hours,
Hmm.
and then you're on to the next one in that time frame. So say your call took 2 hours, I've probably taken 100 phone calls.
Right,
So,
well, we've been there, on on a break,
I
on
mean,
a
that's
focused we're on a
exaggerating a little
focused
bit, but
no, yeah.
yeah.
But like
So
we're on a focused mission where you're just still continuing to do small missions or larger
right,
missions, because then you're dispersing it to another officer or deputy to then go, you go deal with that, and then now you've got another one. So in a whole county, you may have 5 or 6 of those working, and there's that one nucleus where you guys are that you're dealing with that. So yeah.
right, right. So
Yeah.
it's just I mean, and not to negate your guys' trauma,
Hmm.
but because
Yeah.
it's different. Trauma is trauma. But it just with dispatchers, I think we get more of the compound where
Hmm.
it just on top, one on top of the other, and you don't have time to breathe sometimes until the end of your shift. And, you know,
Yeah,
it
I think we get to sometimes, even if we're milking a call, we sometimes get an opportunity at the end to decompress that, where
Right,
you guys
right.
may be in that rapid fire environment consistently.
Mhm.
It's even if it's just that child on a 911 hang up, or a pocket dial, you're dealing with that. And then, like you said, the next call comes in and it's not that 911 hang up, it's that stabbing, or it's that I just got in a car crash and my family member's injured, and they're expecting
Right.
you to be able to perform the CPR, or that kind of thing, and you're going to talk that person through it. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely see that, because there's times, like I said, where I'll call it milking a call, but I'm looking at the
Oh, yeah,
board, I
it's
see that
we do out here too.
there's nothing holding that's of major importance or emergency
Right.
calls, and it's like, all right, let me sit here and let me maybe start to knock out a little bit of the report, or just sit with my partner there, or my buddy, because my agency, we ride one to a car. So
Oh, right.
we'll just be together in the same parking lot still, or just down the street from wherever we're coming from, and you just BS for a little bit, or talk about something completely
Yeah,
different.
you're able to
And
take that 5 minutes and
mhm,
just kinda decompress,
yeah,
maybe, unless
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
one of those nights, but,
And those come too, and
yeah,
that's a difficult, thankfully I work day shift, so it's yeah, it still takes me a while to get places because of traffic, and I'm
right.
stuck in traffic, whereas when I worked midnights, you can get to everywhere really fast. So those calls do end up compressing a little bit more.
Yeah.
um, but you have any stories that you share about, maybe like a 911 call or something like that, or
Um, well, my
before you get
first
started?
before
Before you
I
get
get
started, I'll cut you off, and I'll throw a little break commercial in, and then we'll come right back to it. So I'll cue you up for that, and then we'll go take that real quick, and I'll be right back.
okay.
Let me All right, again. Sorry, I'm not speedy with this yet, everybody.
No, you're
Here here's this, and we'll be right back. Hey, what's up, guys? Just so you know, we created a Donut Shop Podcast Clips channel. Just clips, meat and potatoes. Some of the best parts of each of our episodes are going to be over on that channel. You can go check it out. Hit the link down in our description. Like, follow, and subscribe. All the stuff over on that channel too. Help us out. All right, we're back. See, this is nice and give you a second to gather yourself, and now let's hear a story about, it's an interesting 911 call, or something that was
interesting.
crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I don't mean to do
30
what like my
years
friends
of
do when we're out
30
drinking.
years of interesting, yeah.
Tell me the
Um,
scariest moment as a police officer, and I'm like, oh, come on,
uh,
dude.
I know, it's like and then when you tell them, 'em, they're not like, they just kind of go pale.
Hmm.
I mean, my very first 911 call was a mom who had found her daughter had committed suicide in the bathroom.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a way to start your career off, I guess. Um, but
that's an
throughout the years
indoctrination.
we've had, where you just take that 911 call and there's something big going on and they're looking for somebody, and you get that 911 call where the person is calling because there's a strange person in their neighborhood, and oh my gosh, lo and behold, that's who they're looking for. um let's see, jeez, um I've had, UFO calls where they call and strange lights in the sky. So we refer them to the FAA and let them
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah.
I've had one that could have been a Bigfoot call. We're not quite sure. Yeah, somebody looking in the window, and the guy saw something walk off and left big barefoot prints in the
Big
snow
feet.
outside
Yeah.
his house.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
it's so
when
you
you're
you
working
probably
in a
end up like
county that's like, yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
because you got the Sierra Nevadas and the woods and stuff like
Right.
that, and so you're
Yeah, so
dealing
we
with
were
that.
working for we go from like urban to national forest.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
awesome.
a lot of stuff in between, you know.
So would you say that you're able to kind of hear, because like I know I can even read sometimes with how the 911 operators typed it in and go, all right, this one's gonna be BS, or they're telling me something in this text. Um, and then of course, once you start talking to that person, when you get to their house or the business or whatever, we with 18 and a half years experience like myself, you can just feel it and be like, all right, this person's full of crap, or they're crazy or whatever. You
Oh,
doing the same
right.
thing on the phone?
Yeah, you can kind of do that. You know, it's kind of like, oh yeah, right, right, right. You know, when you have uh, chronic people that call that that are that use the cops to harass other people,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know the calls are just made up, and so you can kind of put that snarkiness into the call
Mhm, yeah,
without violating policy
right,
or ruining that court case that may come out later.
yeah,
You know, just putting in there that, yeah, you know, just using words like believe, they believe this is happening, or
yeah,
just so that the guys out on the street are like, this might not be right. But you know, every once in a while you have that one call for that crazy person that is always calling you, that is going to be an actual call. So you never
right,
know.
yeah. Or did you ever get on, like, a first name basis with,
Oh,
one of
yes.
those callers that are the frequent
Oh my
ones?
gosh. Throughout the years, yeah. Um, I must have had like at least once a year you have that one person um that would call, and I learned the hard way not to give your actual first name to these people
Oh,
because they call and ask for you.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So,
We had officers that would be on like light duty, and so sometimes they would sit in dispatch and they'd be taking telephone reporting unit type stuff, and so the dispatchers might like lean out of the cubicle and be like, "Hey, can you take this?" Because that's what I was doing a little bit before I even went back in the police academy. They'd just be like, "Can you just talk to this person?" Like they're holding up my line. Just listen to their
right.
problem and make up story, some resolution for them. And yeah, they sometimes they would call after that officer healed up and they'd request, "Hey, let me talk to
Oh,
this
yeah.
person." And it's like, no, they're not in here anymore.
No, no, no,
It-
you may not.
request the officer, because of course when we're just on a regular line, not necessarily recorded, and we're just shooting the breeze with them or having a real conversation, and they might have shared their real name, or even if they're just going officer, you know asking for the last name. It was funny when they'd ask for him, and then sometimes they'd see him back out on the road when they'd finally have to respond to a real call and be like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
yeah.
that was me." So um,
I actually have one crazy person. Oh, sorry. I had one of those people follow me from Sacramento to El Dorado.
Uh, like, as a resident, or actually follow you,
Like
like
they
stalk you?
moved.
Uh-huh.
So no, they weren't stalking me, thank
Yeah.
goodness. But it's
Oh,
like,
okay.
really, I thought I got rid of you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now you're here.
How did you end up over here? Yeah, that, that would be kind of like a freaky moment, when you switch over and you've got a whole different
Right.
brand and atmosphere that you're in, and then you hear that same voice, you hear that same person, you're
Like,
like,
oh
"Ah,
no.
here they are.
Uh,
I know how this one's gonna go." Um, when I was let me, I'm going to bounce an idea off you. Let me, when I was working in the public information office, because our dispatch is kind of through the county. It's not our own agency
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
Back when
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started, it was our own agency. And then now the county, to try and do like multi-agency dispatch so that there's less issues with, you know, boundaries and stuff. They're mostly all in the same room kind of thing.
Right.
Um, but I felt like it would have been a good thing for like major critical incidences to include them in debriefs, or
Oh.
even if it's just write-ups, you know, because one of the things that I like to do was even to give our officers like, hey, here's the information I'm about to give out to the public or the media, and put it in the department email because it's about to be public record anyways. Here's the information I'm about to give out, and you're going to see it on the news or social media. You can read it first, and then you can have that in case the media chops up parts of it or omits some of it. This was the full story that we were prepared to lease or release prior to
Mhm.
investigation. um you know, the same sort of thing could go to you guys to um include or loop dispatch in, so you get that sort of additional information.
Oh,
Do you think that'd be
absolutely.
helpful?
Oh, yes. Or like a daily briefing sheet coming
Mm,
from the PIO, or if uh you have a web page. I would assume you have a web page for the
you could.
PIO for your department, and just make sure
We
that
didn't, but
and
yeah, that could be a good, that's a good point too. Yeah, just to be able to just refer them to
you
that
know,
kind of
let
stuff. That's
people know
true.
that, hey, this is going on, because your first people that are going to deal with stuff that goes out to the public is your dispatchers. They're going to
Mhm.
call there before they call, the front desk, or call you guys. And so if you're having stuff go out to the general public, you need to have them know what's going on and what to be prepared for.
Yeah.
I know we had a couple times where we weren't prepared, and it was a Friday night and everybody had gone home, and it goes on the 11 o'clock news and we had no idea what was going on. So
Yeah.
we had to call and wake people up.
Yeah, and then you're right, and then people just call dispatch thinking it's, you know, the old school, you know, dial zero, or, you know, information. You know,
Right.
that's their source of information, because there's still a lot of people that don't, you know, jump on X or Facebook to get their news. You know, they just, you know, that's not their style, and if the
Right.
news isn't on, they're not savvy to jump on the internet. They got to call somebody. So they're, you know, they got to call the police. I
Right.
get more and more amazed at how much the police have to, um, you know, help people along in their life, you know, when it's
Yes.
not necessarily
Sometimes I
enforcing
felt like
laws.
a parent to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all the time. I say that a lot. Well, for me, I was just the other day. I was customer service at the at the post office. I was like, why am I
Yeah,
customer service? Like, why am I having to
exactly.
settle this dispute like between the customer and the post office? Like, you know,
Or
is there a
the
manager
mom that
around?
calls and says, "My kid's not going to bed on time," and it's like, "Really? Who's the
Yeah,
parent here?"
yeah, 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 yeah.
And they wanna have cops come out and, talk to the kid, and it's like, that's how you get a bad the bad,
Outlook
out
or
yeah, the bad image of cops is that kinda thing. And I told her, I said, "Put the kid on the phone." I flipped to mom voice and I said, "You will go to bed, and you will go to
yeah,
bed now, or I will be out there tomorrow morning."
right.
Never heard
Yeah,
from him again. So, it worked, I guess.
yeah, that's like us when we're eating dinner or eating lunch, and the mom or dad would come over and say, like, you know, finish your vegetables or they're going to arrest you. And we'd look at
Oh,
the kid and we'd go, no, we're not. We're not going to
yeah,
arrest you for that because that's not a crime.
yeah,
Just be a good boy, you know, like that kind of thing. And
yeah.
it's like we look at the parents and go, what are you doing? Like, you need
Yeah.
that kid who's, I mean, obviously they're not talking about a teenager or a young adult, you know, they're talking
Oh,
about
no, it's the little
an
kids, and
elementary
you don't
school
want
age kid. Yeah.
yeah, you don't
And we
want those
need them
kids
to come
afraid
up.
of you. Yeah.
Yeah, we want them to come up to us when they're scared or when they're lost or whatever, and not think that we're going to arrest them
Absolutely.
because they walked away from their parent and we're going to take them to jail. Um, so you said, you did say, you had, people that called for Bigfoot and everything like that. Any
Oh, yeah.
silly stories or
No, I mean,
put you on the
just
spot?
kind of like it kind of went soup to nuts. I mean, you have so many of them that it's hard to that, and I have PTSD brain, so I don't remember a lot.
Okay.
You know, uh, I wish I had had a notebook to
Mhm.
back in the day to write out just synopsis of crazy things that would have happened.
Right, thoughts,
But
yeah.
you just I mean, it's just the typical um, you know, neighbor disputes that would just get so out of control you could just it was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the stuff that they were doing to each other.
Oh yeah. And then you could tell when the first day of school was back when we had payphones.
Mhm.
The first day of school during school hours we would get an abundance of 911 calls from the
Mhm.
school payphones because
Oh,
the kids would dare each other to
yeah.
play on the phones.
And it's right there, and it's right in front of you, and
Exactly, and so we'd have to send somebody over to go take care of the problem and just I mean, there is a lighter side to the job, and there are
mhm.
calls that you can laugh at. Oh, uh my Thanksgiving Day call. I had a guy call 911, and we have a problem in Tahoe with bears.
Yeah.
Um Big problem. And he calls up and says, "A bear just broke into my fridge out on my back porch and ate my turkey." And the first thing out of my mouth was, "Oh, bummer." You know?
Yeah. I mean, like, let me
And
relate to you
then
at
you
least.
remember, "Oh, wait, I'm supposed to calm this guy down." But he went, "Oh, yeah, you're right," and started laughing also. So, it just
I mean, at least it wasn't your kid, he's not in your living room,
right.
it's on your back patio or something like that, like, is
But,
everyone safe, but like you said, you gotta switch your brain back on to work mode. It's like, wait a minute,
yeah, it's, "Oh,
you know?
shoot."
Yeah, because it's also a holiday, so sometimes our brains are in a little different mode when we're working, like I worked
Oh,
this
yeah,
last
but I
year and
felt
you
so
kinda like,
bad for him. It's like, "Oh my gosh," it
yeah.
broke in, but that's what happens up there is they smell that food and they break in.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you had some turkey grease on your hands, and then you touched your fridge door, and so it's like radiating off of it to their noses.
Yeah.
So yeah, oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
yeah, because I know I've been to, like, bear country, and the garbage cans are all super locked down and inside bins. They're bins inside the bins with locks and
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of stuff just because those bears come around. Yogi's looking for his next picnic basket.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
all right, I'm gonna throw another one of my final one of those little commercials up. But what I want to talk about when we come back from it is, you know, if you can think of, where there's like pitfalls or problems within the industry, dispatch maybe that's not helping you or not putting you in the right place. Okay. So you've
Mhm.
got about 20 seconds to think about that. And then I'll get back to it. And I talked it up and then off I went and then I lost it. Where'd the thing go? It's under here. Oh yes. I'm gonna learn. Next episode, I'm gonna be much better at this. All right, I'll be right. Hey, hey, come here. Come here. No. Bring it in real close. I got something for you. Did you subscribe yet? Right down there. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification because you got to know when we're going to give you a show. Do it. Go now. Go now. I'm waiting. Come on. Right there. All right, back to the show. All right. So, like I was saying, with, I mean, you touched on it before, like where it could come from, the PTSD and the some of the crazy calls, the stacking of crazy calls on top of each other, and the
Mhm.
layer cake that creates it, and then over 30 years. um But are there pitfalls or things that could be done better, you think, in your time talking about this with your experience?
When I first started, um, there was no such thing as peer support. There
Mhm,
was no such thing as it being okay for to go to a psychiatrist or a therapist. You just sucked it up and you were expected to be back at the job the next day.
mhm,
Um, about 2015 was the first time that dispatch was included in what they called a kumbaya meeting, where we got together with patrol after a critical call to kind of talk about our feelings more. It wasn't a tactical debrief that came later, but that was the first time that they actually had something like that, which it was a great first step.
mhm.
Um, and having peer support, unfortunately, we had a manager in my department over dispatch that didn't believe in having more than one peer support in dispatch. They just wanted one peer support person for the dispatchers. And you
Yeah.
can't have that. You need, especially since the person that was peer support was an abusive supervisor. So
Yeah.
you
Completely
can't have
counterproductive.
that. Nobody wants to go to that person. So we would utilize peer support, but we would make sure to not include that person. Um
Right. So you kinda go outside dispatch maybe or someone else that was in
right.
the
So get
program.
somebody with patrol and things like that. When on our last my last critical incident, the one that kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back, we had excellent short-term peer support and critical incident debriefs. I mean, I was pulled off the radio early from my shift.
Mhm.
As soon as the incident was over with, we had a debrief that morning before we all left. We were also included in that incident. A deputy lost his life,
Mhm.
and I was the radio dispatcher that night.
Yeah.
So we
That would
were
be terrible.
um, uh, worst day of my life.
Uh,
Um, but we were able to also be part of the procession to take his body from
mm,
um, the hospital that was at in our county down to the coroner's office in Sacramento for the
right.
autopsy.
Right, included in that kinda somber
Um,
moment that it's a very close, personal, familial moment to be able to do that as, like, an agency and show support and stuff. I've been through a number of those with Honor Guard and my agency and stuff, and then throughout the county. So yeah, so continue, yeah.
and then because I had already been in therapy since 2016, so this incident was in 2019. Um, when I got home that day, I called and made an emergency appointment with my therapist,
Yeah.
and then had a friend of mine who was peer support for another agency, and so I hit both of them on the same day and kind of, which was good. And then the we also had another debrief a couple days later after the incident, where we all came to the office and there were therapists and whatnot, and it was good for the short term, that first couple months,
Mhm.
but the long term effects, there wasn't the care that was needed. So um on the call that I sent, there were four deputies. One of those deputies was a ride along. He was
Mhm.
applicant ride along, so he was
Ooh.
coming to check us out
I just did that the
to
other day. I had somebody in my car. Yeah.
um so they went out to this call and they were basically ambushed.
Mm.
Um one of my deputies was killed, the applicant ride along was shot, and the two others uh basically got the other two out of there.
Yeah.
Um and mayhem and foolishness ensued, and
Yeah.
finally got both the suspects in custody. um but out of The 5 of us, so dispatch and the 4 deputies, none are left at that department.
Mhm.
And it was, I think I lasted the longest. I lasted a year.
Oh, really? So they, beyond potential health, strictly you attribute it to mental health or PTSD from that incident, like
Absolutely.
with the deputies and then the other dispatch employees. Oof, yeah, that's
So,
yeah,
yeah, so
it's
the aftercare short term, that first
mhm,
month or 2 was great, but there was nothing after and nothing to help. Um, One deputy never came back
mhm,
after the incident. He just One deputy would come back for a little bit and then be gone, come back, be gone, and then he finally retired just before I did. And
yeah,
I was still coming to work, you know, crying on the way home, crying on the way to work, crying during breaks. Um, no real direction. The supervisor that I had took me down a disciplinary route because she wasn't trauma informed. And she was the type of person when I snapped at her, she took it personally.
mm,
So, yeah.
yeah. No, I
And so,
I get it.
luckily,
Yeah.
I had another supervisor who was going to school to be a counselor, a therapist. Um, and she saw what was going on with me, and
Hmm.
she pulled me into the office and said, "You're going on workman's comp. You don't have a choice. I'm not letting you have a choice. You fill out this paperwork and get it done.
Wow.
You need help."
Yeah.
And yeah, and a month
And
after that, my psychiatrist signed me out.
wow, yeah, and I mean, and you need people to be able to recognize that, and I see it. I've felt it to where it's like, all you really needed to do is have somebody go, "What's up?" Like, it,
Exactly. And
it's
there wasn't.
like kind of what you were saying. It's abnormal for you to leave the room crying or whatever.
Mhm.
Like what's, and actually say what's going on and actually listen to you, and that's should be the role of peer support, but it should be the role of everybody around you, as well.
Correct.
It's just, it's not just our job to worry about the public. It should be our job to watch each other's back. And so for officers, we're always thinking it's the violence that we're protecting each other from, like I got your six and I got your back, and it's not always just making
Right.
sure you don't get shot or stabbed in the back. It's what's going on in the back of your head, when you're on the
Exactly. And
job.
I
And
mean, is that I would much stigma that surrounds mental health. I would much rather have a person that is going to therapy and trying to fix themselves rather than the person going, "I'm fine.
mhm.
Nothing's wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
okay." Because the person that says I'm fine and is not getting help is the one that's going to crack at the worst possible time.
Right, because it's a pressure cooker. It all bottles up, and I've been through it myself, and I know that happens. Um, I know for me, I try to do a lot of extracurriculars. My wife calls me a serial hobbyist. I have a hobby, and then I go like hardcore. I've got, what hand? Here we go. I've got a Star Wars helmet in the back.
Ah,
I've done I have full movie costumes, Star Wars costumes, and I've gone for years to special events, charities, hospitals, all that kind of stuff with the Star Wars group. So that's something that's completely different than, I mean, I'm putting a uniform on, but I'm putting a different uniform on. And
but it's
something like that does that. I'm also, I try to work out as much as possible, and I know for a lot of people that's it kicks a lot of things up in your body, and I mean, I'm definitely not you know a biologist or anything like that, or a doctor that can explain everything it does, but it does good things. Did you in addition to therapy ever have anything like that, like an outlet, or was it just kind of work?
um I do a lot of sewing and knitting.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that was kind of an outlet, and I was walking at the time.
Yeah.
Um, Even on my breaks, I would go out and walk and listen to podcasts and um,
Fresh air.
fresh. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, except during fire season, but
Oh, yeah, that's you guys get fires. Yeah, you guys get
we
those
get it.
fires out there.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
couple times it was so bad that I was wearing a mask outside
Ah,
rather than
yeah, yeah,
inside because
yeah,
it was just so bad. Um,
yeah.
but
Hey, you didn't end up having to work through COVID stuff in
yeah,
dispatch,
yeah,
did you? Yeah,
it
you
was
had
definitely.
retired prior to that?
I retired in 2021.
Oh, so you were part
Um,
of that. You had to deal with it.
so and a psychiatrist signed me out in October of 2020.
Oh,
So yeah, I got that
yeah,
initial part. So
because I
yeah,
know
and
with our
that's
dispatch,
another
it was
thing
tough.
too. When you're having a trauma and then all of a sudden you go into a lockdown and you can't go anywhere. You can't go out and do the things you normally were doing.
Well, you're in California too,
You
so yeah,
know,
wow.
as far as being outside, you couldn't be around people. So
Yeah,
everybody decided they wanted to go out. So I
yeah,
would find more people. I would bump into more people on my walks outside during COVID than I
yeah,
did before that. And so, it was different. They're taking this person with trauma and putting them in a box for a while. That was not,
mhm,
that to it, I think.
yeah, they close it off. Um, one of the people that when you and I started communicating about coming on the show, I have I'll call him a young man. I still feel like a young man, but I'll call him a young man because he's really young. He was one of our police explorers, and
Mm.
I'm an advisor. And then he worked at the state attorney's office in college, and then now he's a dispatcher, and he works midnights. So I see him in the mornings when I'm usually when I'm coming out of briefing, he's coming out of the elevator, and it's like
Uh,
so exciting to see him, growing up kind of thing and doing that. And I'm always because I'm a fan of dispatchers, I always talk to him about it and ask him. And I told him, I said, I've got Deborah coming on as a retired dispatcher, as a long time dispatcher with a lot of experience. So I'm going to interview him probably face to face, but I'm going to interview him as a young dispatcher, somebody seeing and hearing all this stuff, and he's aspiring to be a deputy for the county, but in the meantime, this is what he's doing. So, if you have any words of advice from a wise dispatcher with years of experience, what would you say to them?
um, don't wait for the poop to hit the oscillating device. Go get
Okay.
yourself a therapist right away.
Yeah.
um, Getting established with a therapist, finding somebody that you're comfortable with, that you can start, once or twice a year in the beginning. That way, when you do have those issues come up or you have a traumatic event, you have somebody that you're already established with, and that person can give you the tools early to deal with these traumas that and it's not an if, it's a when with
Mhm.
with our jobs.
Right.
It's you're
Yeah. I mean
gonna get
that
it.
that goes across the board to police, fire, any kind of person responding to other people's problems as a profession
Right.
consistently over and over
Yes.
again, multiple times a day. So yeah, that's good advice, to sort of have yourself prepared for that because you may not be in that mental space to even locate that type of a help. um and I've heard it in other places, don't go with you don't always go with the first
No.
therapist or person
No.
that you talk to. You may need to talk to a few to get an idea.
Right.
And there's even apps now that are able to connect you like this to other people,
Oh,
that you don't
and
even
this
have
is
to
how I
deal with a
have my
local.
therapy. My
Hmm.
therapy is online, so I don't have
Yeah.
to leave the house, because I do childcare now for my grandson, and
Hmm.
so during nap times is when I schedule my therapy appointment so that I have that
Yeah.
quiet time and don't have him running around and bugging me. Um,
Cool.
so
Very
yeah,
cool. All right. Well, I mean, that's great advice. Is you told me you don't necessarily have a book and stuff like that. Is there any
I
way
don't
that
have a
anybody
book
can
yet.
can
It's sort of,
can follow you or
I'm on Instagram, and Instagram
okay.
will take you to my link tree. So I'm on
Okay.
TikTok, I'm on X, I'm on Facebook. I kind of leave for friends and family. But
What's the Instagram?
the Instagram is D911 Green.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it out on the bottom. D911 green with an E at the end, right?
No E. No E.
No, oh yeah, I'm
Only
looking
two
at it right
E's
there
in
on your
green.
name. Now,
But yeah,
see,
I
this is
do
now I'm trying to do the talking and typing and stuff like that. There you
there
go.
you go.
There, it's on the bottom.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but yeah, I have a link tree, and oh my gosh, I feel so special. And I do kind of uplifting TikToks. I just kind of give, those just little blurbs to lift people up during the
cool.
day, and
Yeah.
uh
During nap time.
during nap time. Actually, we go on a walk. So, the one thing when I was signed out by my psychiatrist, I put myself on a schedule because I had been on graveyards for like 19 years.
Eesh, yeah,
Um,
that hurts too. Yeah.
so yeah, so I put myself on a schedule. I was up by 8 o'clock in the morning and in bed by 11. And when I got up, I would always walk in the mornings. So I have
Hmm.
a 3 mile route that I take every day. And my grandson has been part of that since I started watching him. He was a month old um, when I started watching him in 2020.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're approaching
Cool.
4 years old now. So,
Yeah.
and we will do our walk, and he really likes it. And we have a place, our turnaround point, which we call where the sidewalk ends, because there's literally
Yeah.
a barrier. You can't go any farther.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we get outside, and that's a big, big, huge part of getting my healing process was just getting out and getting that natural vitamin D.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big thing. Well, we're lucky in Florida. I mean, you guys have just as much of it in California, unless you're covered in smoke from fires.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a bonus, and it's sometimes underutilized for all of us, and so it's a good tip.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on Donut Shop Podcast. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to check her out, D911 Green on Instagram, and then you can check the link tree and see some of these helpful, uplifting messages for the future.
And my
And
artwork.
oh, cool. Yeah.
I
And
paint.
so
I do some paintings and post
oh,
those. So
and you share that too. So
yes,
very
I don't know
cool.
if you can see behind, right there,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, right there. Okay, cool.
right there.
Cool.
My thin gold line.
Yeah, the gold line. Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you for coming on Donut
Well,
Shop Podcast,
I
this
appreciate you
inaugural
having me.
episode
And
of Yard Stream or StreamYard, and yeah, I think it worked out pretty well, except for a few little hiccups here and there. Um,
oh yeah,
so, all right. Well,
wonderful.
thank you
Thanks
very
so
much,
much.
and we'll see everybody else on the next one. And let's do the little outro, and then we'll be off.
Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.